want to tell you something that took me an embarrassingly long time to figure out. And I mean that literally. Years. Maybe a decade of making the same mistake in different shapes. The most dangerous financial trap isn't debt. It's not bad investments. It's not even laziness. It's looking rich. Let that sit for a second, because I know what you're thinking. I don't try to look rich. I'm not buying Lamborghinis. Sure, me neither. But looking rich doesn't require a Lamborghini. It doesn't even require a lot of money. It just requires spending money on things that signal something to other people. And almost all of us do it, every day, without noticing. I'm 38. I work from home. I have kids. And I've made more financial mistakes than I'd like to admit on camera. But I'm going to admit a couple of them today, because I think they might sound familiar. And before we go any further, I have to say this clearly. Nothing in this video is financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a professional anything, really. I'm just a guy who works from home, made a lot of mistakes with money, and started paying attention. If you need real financial guidance, talk to someone qualified. What I'm sharing here is just my own experience, my own thinking. Take it for what it is. Okay, let's talk about the trap. When most people hear looking rich, they picture someone obvious. A guy with a leased BMW he can't afford. A woman posting vacation photos from a trip she put on a credit card. Someone wearing a watch that cost 3 months of rent. And yes, that's looking rich. But that's the obvious version. That's the easy one to spot. And the easy one to feel superior about. The version I'm talking about is quieter. It's sneakier. And honestly, it got me. It looks like this. You upgrade your phone every 2 years because the old one still works fine, but the camera is noticeably worse. You buy the slightly nicer version of something, the slightly nicer car, the slightly nicer jacket, the slightly nicer apartment, because you can technically afford the monthly payment. You go to a restaurant that's a little out of your budget because you don't want to be the person who suggests somewhere cheaper. You renovate something in your house, not because it was broken, but because you'd feel embarrassed if people came over and saw the old version. None of this is dramatic. None of this shows up in the movies as a cautionary tale. There's no villain, no obvious moment where you went wrong. It's just drift. You drift upward in spending, month after month, year after year, and the whole time it feels normal, because you're surrounded by people doing the same thing. That's what makes it a trap. It doesn't feel like a trap. It feels like a lifestyle. Here's the part that gets me, even now. A lot of this spending, most of it, isn't even about what you want. It's about what you want people to think about you. The phone upgrade isn't really about the camera. The nicer car isn't really about the drive. The restaurant is about not looking like you can't afford it. We spend money managing how we appear to other people, and we barely notice we're doing it. I'm not judging. I did it too. I still catch myself doing it sometimes. But when I started actually looking at where my money was going, really looking, I started seeing it everywhere. Little decisions, little signals, little performances of a life I wanted people to believe I was living, and none of it was making me feel secure. That's the thing nobody says out loud. Looking rich and feeling financially safe are almost opposites. The more you spend on appearance, the less you have as a foundation. And foundations are the only thing that actually helps when something goes wrong. Okay, I said I'd share some mistakes. Let me do that. This one still stings a little. A few years ago, I made a decision about a car. The car I had at the time, it worked. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't new, but it moved me from one place to another, which is what a car is supposed to do. And then I started telling myself a story. I told myself the old car was unreliable, that repairs were piling up, that it made more sense financially to just get something newer. All of that was partially true. And I used that partial truth to justify a decision that wasn't really about the car at all. The real reason I wanted a different car? I was embarrassed. I don't know exactly who I was embarrassed in front of. There was no single moment. It was more like a vague, ambient pressure. People in my life had newer cars. I'd see certain cars and feel something, a kind of low-level dissatisfaction with my own. So I upgraded. And the monthly payment? Manageable. That was the word I used. Manageable. Not comfortable, not easy, manageable. Here's what I should have asked myself and didn't. What does manageable actually mean when something unexpected happens? When a month is harder than usual? When there's an unexpected expense? And there's always an unexpected expense. When the income dips, or the kid needs something, or the roof needs something, or the washing machine dies on a Tuesday for no particular reason, manageable becomes tight. Tight becomes stressed. Stressed becomes that specific kind of anxiety that lives in your chest at 2 a.m. I know that anxiety well. And part of it, a real, measurable part of it, was caused by a car payment I took on because I was embarrassed about what my car said about me. That's not a financial mistake in the dramatic sense. Nobody would put that in a cautionary movie. But that's exactly the kind of mistake that quietly adds up. That kind of decision, made over and over, across years. A car here, a phone there, a renovation for the wrong reasons. That's how people end up at 45 wondering where the money went. Working hard, earning decent money, and still feeling behind. I was lucky that I eventually caught it. A lot of people don't. So why do we do this? Why do smart people, people who know better, people who've read the articles and watched the videos, still fall into this trap? I've thought about this a lot, and I think the honest answer is because it works. Not financially. Financially, it's terrible. But socially, it works. It really does. When you drive a nicer car, people treat you slightly differently. When you live in a bigger place, certain invitations come your way. When you dress a certain level, conversations open up. People make assumptions, usually good ones. Status signals work. That's why they exist. We've been reading each other's status signals for tens of thousands of years. It's not vanity. It's deeply wired. The problem is that the modern version of it is extremely expensive. In the past, I'm talking a long time ago, your status signals were probably your physical strength, your skills, maybe your land, things you actually had, things that were real. Now the primary status signal is consumption. What you buy, what you wear, where you eat, what you drive, where you go, what phone you hold up at the restaurant to take the photo. And consumption is bottomless. There's always a newer version, a more expensive version, a version that signals just a little bit more. So you're on a treadmill, and the treadmill never stops. I think for men specifically, and I can only really speak from that experience, there's something extra going on. There's a version of manhood that's tied to providing, to being capable, to having things handled. And one of the ways that gets expressed, especially when you don't feel fully secure, is through material things. A nice car says, I have this handled. A nice watch says, I'm doing okay. A certain house in a certain neighborhood says, my family is taken care of. None of that is wrong exactly. The instinct underneath it is actually good. The desire to provide, to protect, to be stable, that's real and it matters. But the expression of it through expensive things, that's where it gets complicated. Because the expensive thing doesn't make you more stable. It makes you less stable. And deep down, some part of you knows that, which is why the anxiety doesn't go away after the purchase. You get a small hit of relief, and then the background hum of financial stress continues, because the foundation hasn't actually changed. You just added another monthly payment to it. The second story is smaller, but it's the one that actually woke me up. I bought something. I won't say what exactly. It doesn't really matter. Because I knew people were going to be at my place. It wasn't broken. It wasn't needed. It was a perfectly fine version of the thing. But I looked at it, and I thought about people seeing it, and I thought, this looks dated. This looks like I haven't done well enough. So I bought a newer version. I put it on a card. I told myself it was an upgrade I'd been meaning to do. And then the people came over. And not one of them noticed. Not one person said anything, not a glance, not a comment. The thing I'd bought, specifically so other people would see it and feel a certain way, they didn't even register it. And I stood there in my own house and I thought, I just spent money I didn't really have, on something I didn't really need, for people who didn't even notice. That sounds almost funny, and in a dark way it is. But what it actually was, what that moment was a window into how much of my spending was completely disconnected from my own actual desires. I didn't want that thing. I wanted a version of myself that other people would approve of, and I was using money to try to buy that. That's the trap. That's the full version of it. You're not buying things, you're buying a performance, and the audience usually isn't even watching. I'm not going to sit here and tell you to live like a monk. I don't live like a monk. I have things. I enjoy things. Some things I spent money on were completely worth it, and I'd do it again without hesitation. The difference isn't deprivation. The difference is the question you ask before you spend. The question isn't, can I afford this monthly payment? The question is this actually for me? Or is it for how I want people to see me? That's it. That's the whole thing. When I started asking that question honestly, not as a guilt trip, just as a real question, my spending changed. Not dramatically, not overnight, but slowly the decisions started to look different. Some things I'd been buying regularly, I stopped buying. Not because I forced myself to, but because when I actually asked, the honest answer was, this is performance. This isn't me. And some things I kept, because when I asked, the answer was, this genuinely matters to me, regardless of what anyone thinks about it. That distinction matters. A lot. The other thing that changed, the thing that surprised me more than anything, was how much quieter I felt. Financially, yes. Fewer obligations, less weight. But also mentally. There's a specific kind of stress that comes from maintaining a performance, from keeping up an image of a life that's slightly beyond what you actually have. It's not dramatic stress. It's low level, constant, like a sound you've been hearing so long you forgot it was there. When the spending got simpler, that sound got quieter. I didn't expect that. I thought I'd feel like I was missing out on something. Instead, I felt like I'd put something down that I'd been carrying for a long time without noticing. So, the most dangerous financial trap isn't crypto. It's not some complicated investment mistake or bad market timing. It's something quieter, something that looks completely normal because everyone around you is doing it. It's spending money to manage how other people see you. And the reason it's dangerous isn't just that it wastes money. It's that it creates a version of your life that's slightly out of reach, that costs a little more than you have, that requires you to keep running just to stay in place. And somewhere in that running, somewhere in that constant low-level effort to look a certain way, you lose something. Not money. Well, yes, money. But also the chance to actually feel settled. The chance to have a foundation that holds when something goes wrong. The chance to make a decision based on what you actually want, rather than what the decision will say about you. I'm still working on this. I don't have it figured out. There are still moments where I catch myself thinking about how something will look, where the instinct kicks in, where the story starts building. But I catch it faster now. And that, honestly, is the whole game. Not perfection, just noticing sooner. If something I said today sounded familiar, if you recognized yourself in any of it, then you're already ahead. Because most people never stop to look. Take care of yourself, and I'll talk to you in the next one.